Peggle. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ferret 64 podcast with me, your host, Yemmy the Ferret. I hope you all had a good week and or weekend or a good day. Whatever day you're listening to this, I hope that's a good one. Ferret 64 is the one-stop shop for video game news, occurrences, first impressions, and so much more. And we will get to today's news and occurrences in a little bit. But first, thank you for listening. If you want to hit the like button on YouTube, whether you're listening on an audio-only platform, I would appreciate that. It does help the podcast grow. Also, these episodes will be officially coming out on Mondays now. That is because I got a couple requests to put the video version on Spotify, and that just takes a bit extra time to upload there now. So I have to do, the Spotify version, and then I have to do the YouTube version afterwards. I can't just do them at the same time because it's too much on my network to upload two things at once. So, especially something that like this big, that the podcast is. So, thank you so much for listening. Let's move on, or let's get started with the first part of the episode, which is what have I been playing this past week. The first game to talk about this week is Wanderstop, which I did pick up day 2. I picked it up day 2, and I decided to give it a try because even though the game style is not exactly my forte, like I'm not super big into games where it's just about crafting and cleaning, I guess. I'm not like a Minecrafter. I'm not like I don't do a lot of those types of games. And even though Wanderstop is not really like a survival game, it is definitely a chill, relaxing, like, hey, do this at your own pace kind of game. I was a bit nervous going into it because of the fact that, like, it is a lot of, it's crafting and it's maintenance and it's, just those tasks that are kind of could be seen as a bit boring to a lot of people. It's like an Animal Crossing. It's supposed to be a cozy experience. You're supposed to hang out, do your thing, worry about what the folks in your town want or your village wants, and there you go. Wanderstop is a bit different, being that it really does let you do things at your own pace, no matter what. It doesn't have any time constraints. The customers who come in and order tea, they don't care if it takes you hours or years, I guess. But they just, they're just hanging around. And if you do bring them the wrong tea, the one that they didn't want, they just say, "Hey, this is great, but not what I ordered." And you go, "Okay, I'll get you the right one." So a lot of the game is the tea creation. You have this big, wonderful device that you need to heat. You need to pour water into it. You need to heat it. You need to move the heated water to the receptacle that you throw in, like a tea leaves, and then you throw in like a type of fruit or whatever to change how it tastes. And then you put it into the big vat where you pour it into a coffee cup or a teacup, and you give it to the customer. And the various fruits all have different properties. Some of them make you have temporary amnesia for the past minute. It only lasts a minute if you drink it too fast. Some of them remind you of your favorite childhood breakfast, which is an interesting one. There's another one that's like, there's one that's pretty basic. It's like, it tastes like mint. It's like, okay, that's very basic compared to all the other ones listed here. So it's like, most of them have some sort of effect on either yourself or the character that you are giving the tea to. And of course, you can combine the different various fruits to make them a little bit different, give a little bit of a different effect to them. And a lot of times you need to kind of use what you know about the fruit. You have a handbook that comes up at any time that you want to remember what the fruit do and how to make the fruit. So it's not like that big of a deal. You don't need to like really remember it. And there's also a hint book as well that gives you hints about what the person wants. So, if you ever get stuck, you can always refer to that, or you can just open up your field guide and be like, okay, how do you make this plant again that makes this fruit? And boom, bada bing, it's right there for you. So, like I said, it's very chill, it's very cozy, and there's some times where you need to decide what the person needs. So, if they come to you and they're like, hey, I have this ache that I can't quite get rid of, there is a fruit for alleviating pain or something like that. So you can then do the whole process for making tea, give them the right fruit for the tea, and he's good to go, or they're good to go. And this happens a lot in the game where a customer comes to you and they say, hey, I've been going through this. And you're like, okay, I have a tea for that. I can go get you a tea. And it's interesting because you yourself can also drink the tea that you make. So if you make the world's worst tea by combining every fruit and making just a brown mixture, your character responds in a according way. Or if you use the amnesia fruit, or if you use the mint fruit, or if you use whatever, she drinks it, and she has a different experience with each one and gives a little monologue while she's just kind of sitting on a bench or sitting inside the Wanderstop and watching the place work. So yeah, it's a very calming game. It's not exactly made to be like this fast paced, like, oh, food kitchen simulator or whatever, food simulator or supermarket simulator or whatever, where you're running around like trying to restock stock shelves and you're trying to make complete orders in a timely manner. It's not like that at all. It's very much like, hey, do your thing, and if you don't want to do something, you do have to make the tea for people to move the story forward. But if there's like a side task, like, oh, you can pot plants, or oh, you can feed the little critters running around, there's like these pufflins or whatever they're called running around, you don't have to. It's all up to you. And the main character for the game, or I guess one of the two main characters for the game, his name is Boro, and he's kind of like your mentor throughout the whole thing. And he's just like, he's very chill. He's like, hey, Boro doesn't want to impose. Boro wishes you all the wealth, all the happiness in the world. Boro's a great guy. Boro's awesome, and you might start off the game not trusting him because he's a bit like too nice, but yeah, he was quite the charmer throughout, and had a lot of words of wisdom that your character can either choose to take or not. That's the other thing about this game, is that it has a background story about your character, who was a great fighter. She was undefeated for years, and then all of a sudden she started losing matches one after the other, and she lost her mojo, I guess you could say. And it's kind of weighing on her subconsciously and also consciously at the same time. And so she goes to the forest to try and find like this master to try and get her back into form. And all of a sudden her sword feels really heavy and she can't move it anymore, and she collapses in the forest. And she tries to go back into the forest a couple times, same thing happens. She has to leave the sword behind, and she collapses from exhaustion. So you decide to stick around at the tea shop and just kind of do your thing. And there are dialogue options throughout the game that can push the story in a different way. So there's kind of like two different directions in the game. One direction is like, hey, I'm going to embrace this role as a tea maker and I'm going to do my best. The other way is I'm going to do this grudgingly and I'm not going to improve my character, and I'm going to backtalk Boro and I'm going to do all this like mean things. So there's two sides to this story that you get to choose yourself, which is interesting. It's not normal to be able to do that in like a cozy game where it's like, oh, it's so nice to be here. Oh, we're all so happy to be here, and then you could just be the character who's like, I don't want to be here. And you can see that she's a fighter through her actions, like when collecting tea leaves in the forest or in the clearing around the forest. She swipes her basket really ferociously. Same thing with like sweeping up leaf piles. You can do like a normal sweep, or you can tap the button to do like a combo sweep. So it's just kind of funny how it works like that. And There's other things as well that the character does that reminds you of like a fighter, and that's cool. I like that a lot. I like that they incorporate that into the story. So the big question mark in the room is like, okay, so a lot of the marketing was like based around from the creator of the Stanley Parable, and he did another game too that I forget the name of right now. From the creator of the Stanley Parable, it says, and I think that's a bit misleading because the game is not really like Stanley Parable at all. In a lot of ways, it is completely different. Now, I will say the writing of the game is immaculate. In Wanderstop, and so was the Stanley Parable. Also had immaculate writing. And when people say like, "Oh, I was really hoping for another Stanley Parable," when they're talking about this game, you kind of go, "Why though? Like, why?" Did you not get enough of the Stanley Parable in the Stanley Parable? It just doesn't really make sense to me that you would want, or people would want another Stanley Parable. Because even though I love that game, I talked about it like a month ago at this point. I love that game. I think it's great. I think that the writing's smart and the humor is amazing. You can say the same things about Wanderstop. The writing is immaculate. There's humor in the game. I love the wacky characters that you meet and get to talk to, and even though some people might not be a fan that there's no real voice acting in the game other than for some key moments, I also like giving these characters their own voices in my head. You know, give this guy a more goofy voice. He's a dad, but he's also a knight, and he's trying to be cool in front of his son. So I gave him like a goofy voice, like, "Oh, I'm a knight," in my head, of course. There was another character that was like this bat character with little wings. You kind of give him like a screechy voice, right? So it's fun to do that in your head if you give it a chance, I should say. There's a lot of people who just see that's a team making game from the creator of Stanley Parable, and they go, "Oh, well, I'm done with that," or "I don't want to play that." And I guess the main thing too is like the Stanley Parable. If you just say what the game is, so Wanderstop, tea making cozy game, right? That's like the base line of that. If I went up to someone and they asked me, "What's the Stanley Parable about?" Well, in the most basic terms, I would say walking in office humor or something like that, right? Like meta. On its face value, Stanley Parable, not that interesting of a concept. Walking, but it's funny sometimes. And on the other hand, you have Wanderstop, where it's like making tea, but it's cozy is like the main thing to start off with. I feel like Wanderstop is a bit more appealing to the most people because it sounds like you're actually doing something, right? And you are. You're doing lots of things in that game. In Stanley Parable, don't get me wrong, love the game. At its base, at its core, it is just a walking game. You walk around, you get some humorous moments, and then you end your time in the game. Wanderstop at least has stuff going on. They have multiple characters to interact with. There's multiple teas you can make. There's multiple ways to tend to the Wanderstop itself. There's not really a twist per se in the game in Wanderstop. There was someone in like the Steam review section before I bought the game. I kind of just scrolled through there just to see if there was, because sometimes if there's too many thumbs downs, I go, well, maybe I'll wait for a sale. This one though had a plenty of thumbs ups, and one of the guys was like, after 3 or 4 hours in, there's a big twist that really kept me going, and I didn't really understand what they were talking about with the big twist. I don't think there's like a huge twist in this game. I mean, obviously there's like some twists and turns in the story, but I didn't think that there was like a twist, like oh no, all of a sudden it's like, oh, the big twist is that you are actually a tiger. No, it's nothing like that. But there is some pretty hard-hitting moments during the story that do have a bit of a twist and a turn. But it's something that I couldn't like maybe foresee coming, or at least try to predict coming. Like, there's a couple of ideas that you get walking around your head as you play through the game. But when the key moment of the game does happen, I didn't really feel like it was a twist. I just felt like, yeah, it's just good writing. It's just good writing. There's also these like packages you can find on the ground in the game, and you can mail them. just putting them in the mailbox, and you'll get like little trinkets back, which is really fun. There's some that are really cute. You could also get the book of the month in the mail, and these are like actually full-fledged short stories. They're not just like slapped onto a page or two like Skyrim or something like that. It's like a good like several pages of a story, and it actually is really the stories are actually worth reading when you have the time. They actually are pretty fun to read. So there's also that as well. There's some collectibles in there. There's some fun stories to read. There's obviously a lot of background to these characters, and then yeah, there's also good music to the game as well. I think that has a nice soundtrack. I think it has a nice visual style as well, kind of like that watercolor palette. With the characters not being like super duper realistic or anything like that, they just have like that shell shaded maybe watercolor palette to them that looks really good. Um, yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. I did finish the game in like a couple of sittings. I was very invested in it, and I was playing it for probably 4 or 5 hours on Friday, and I ended up getting it done on Friday in two separate sittings there. So I was very pleased with my time with it, and actually kept me going. And like I said, really all you do, you tend to the shop and you make tea, and it worked. It worked, and I think that the main reason that it worked so well was because I wanted to see what the next character was going to be that you meet. I wanted to see what the next adventure you were going to have was going to be in this little tea shop, and what the next fruit they could make would be that could change up how things work. And that's the not to mention I didn't even mention the how to make the various different plants and stuff like that. So you have seeds, and there's a grid system on the ground. And what you do is you put one seed in the middle and two on the other sides to make a new seedling tree or plant. That'll give you more seeds of the same color, or if you combine colors, it can also make multiple colors as well. The thing about the whole planting system is if you put down a blue one in the middle and you put a blue one down on the right side of it, you have to put a blue on the other side, on the left side, or else it doesn't work. So if you put a blue in the middle and then two pinks, that works. But if you put a pink and a blue, that doesn't work. Same thing with making the fruit. You put it into a triangle format. So you have the seed plant in the middle that you created, and then you put three of the same color around the seed plant in a triangle formation to make the new fruit tree. And depending on the combination of colors, blue blue, blue green, blue pink, blue yellow, or vice versa, it'll make different fruits that you can use for your teas. And the only thing that's really time consuming is making the tea leaves. It takes like a full like 5 minutes in game for it to tea leaves to dry and be able to use them. So always have a bunch of tea leaves drying, just so you don't have to wait on that. Obviously, there's other things to do around that they can do while they're drying, but it is one of those things where it's like I could have maybe wished for this to go a little bit faster. You can also find new mugs throughout the game as well, whether you find them, get given them by customers, or you find them in leaf piles. There's some really fun ones you can find. One of the ones you can get from a customer just says "die" on the side. I don't know. I used that one a lot for some reason. I thought that was a funny, like, it just says "die," like that's all it says. Um, there were a couple other ones, like there was one that looked like it was made out of clay. There was another one that looked like it was made out of wood. There was another one that was like a sequin multicolor type deal. There was some fun stuff in there for the various mugs. And the tree, like there's this tree that's in the middle of the Wanderstop that has a tea making apparatus around it. If you let the tea go into the like disposal part of the plant, it'll grow a new unique colored flower on it for each tea that you've brewed. So that's also a pretty nice detail. And I don't really want to talk too much more about it because it is something that you should probably experience for yourself. Like there are things that happen in the game that are better to witness and explore and find, rather than me just like blabbing to you about it and just being like, "Oh yeah, so this happens every so often. Isn't that kind of crazy?" I think you should find that out for yourself. Much like how I feel like in Stanley Parable, I shouldn't sit here and tell you about every single path you can take and every single humorous moment in the game, because then that ruins the game for you, the listener. So if you want to play either of those games, I would strongly recommend both of them. I think Wanderstop was a great experience, and I really enjoy Stanley Parable. I actually rated Wanderstop the same that I rated the Stanley Parable, which is a 4.5 out of 5. I think that the only thing that could have been improved with Wanderstop is making those tea leaves go a bit faster, in my opinion. And then I guess there was some times where I just felt like I just didn't know what to do, and I had no indication of what I was supposed to do. And like I said, there's that like cheat book, the little hint book, but that it doesn't tell you like what you need to do next most of the time. It just tells you what the customer wants you to do. So sometimes it's like a timed thing, but other times it is something that you need to do. So it was one of those things where I was juggling between like, okay, so do I need to change the color of all the puffins around, or is it just like a time thing where I just have time to do whatever I want and the game is not like pushing me towards a new objective? I wasn't so sure at times, but for the most part, very enjoyable game. Actually, for the like not just the most part, but for like 99, maybe 98% of the game, very good, very entertaining, very fun, very chill, very cozy, very hard hitting, very well written, all that stuff. So yeah, if you want to check it out, I would recommend doing so. I mean, you know me. I like to dip my toes into a lot of different genres, and sometimes you take a gamble on a genre that you haven't liked in the past, and it just kind of works because there's something about it that's very unique from another game in the same genre. And in this case, I felt like the main thing that really kept me going was the story of it all, the writing, the various characters you can meet, and I also found like the making the tea, like getting the different fruit and stuff like that. I also found that much more entertaining than a lot of other games. That's just like, okay, so to get this specific thing, you just plant this in the ground and wait an hour, and then boom, you have that. This game, it's very much a better system in my opinion. So. Wanderstop, 4.5 out of 5. I finished it. I 100%ed it, which is not that difficult because I think the achievements just unlock as you go through the game, but still, got the 100% done. I was able to check mark that off, and I will be thinking back fondly of the game throughout the year. Greedy Waffles and I have also been playing a lot more Split Fiction. We were trying to get it done before I upload or I recorded this episode, but that just didn't happen. So here we are talking about it before I beat the game. We're pretty close to the end, I'm pretty sure. It seems like things are starting to really escalate and get to a climax. So I am excited to see what the ending is going to be like, because the rest of the game has been very good. I put it on the same level as It Takes Two right now. I think that they are both excellent games. If you want a more, I don't know if grounded is the right word, but a more, with Split Fiction, it's much more like two avenues, like sci-fi, fantasy, and you have storylines based on both those two things. Where It Takes Two really goes in some bizarre places, right? So if you want to, I guess if you want a truly grounded game, you would go for A Way Out, right? But between the two, like more wacky adventures that has come from the studio, Hazelight Studio, Split Fiction, in terms of like what to expect, it doesn't. It's not going to be as like bizarre as It Takes Two. So, with that being said, I think the one thing that we as a duo is struggling with a little bit is the characters that you choose from the beginning of the game and throughout the rest of the game. You can choose one or two characters, obviously. Both characters have their own little niche that they do for almost every single part of the game. So, the green character, who is Zoe, right? She seems to always have the ability to like grab things from far away, or grapple things far away, or manipulate things from a distance using stretchy arms or something like that. That seems to be her thing throughout the game, through the sci-fi levels and through the fantasy levels. That seems to be her kind of thing. She has like the same elements to her. Same thing with Mia, who is the other character in the game, who's the sci-fi writer. She has like a lot of like underwater abilities. She has like gliding is like the main thing for like several of her different storylines that you go through. And it just seems like it's a bit one note in that way. Even though there's a lot of things changing with the game, a lot like there's a lot going on. As I said last time, like it seems like boom, 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 boom. They don't linger on anything for too long, but you do seem to get the same type of abilities throughout a lot of the game. A lot of the game has you with the glide ability, or with the rolling ability, or with the underwater stuff, or with the stretchy stuff. Like it just seems to kind of have the same avenues for both the characters. And I know that's like, okay, so you should probably like switch things up here and there. When Greedy Waffles and I were just starting out, we decided like, hey, we're going to stick to these characters for the entire playthrough, and if we want to switch, we can swap once the playthrough is done, and we can experience the other storyline. Or if I play with someone else, I will I'll try to choose the other character that I didn't use. As of right now, I mean, I would say that Zoe's character is a bit more, or is it Mia? Mia's character is a bit more fun. The sci-fi author, her stuff seems to be a bit more bombastic, a bit more crazy. I guess there's also like the sci-fi aesthetic to her character that also just kind of you lean towards. For a lot of people, like sci-fi is better than fantasy. But I have felt like the story and the design of the sci-fi missions have been a more enjoyable time than the fantasy ones. Like I feel like the first fantasy story in general is a bit boring. I was gonna say lame, but it's more like boring. It's a bit basic at times, and the character abilities aren't like super crazy. The one person is a wooden character who can manipulate plants and use their stretchy arms, and the other character is a monkey who can pound things with their fists and climb on roofs and stuff like that, vines. But there was some shining moments in that story that stood out. Like there's this whole like dancing section where you're trying to impress the Monkey King, and then there was also the boss fight at the end of the whole thing that I thought was also very good. But like there's a lot of time in that first fantasy story that I was like, wow, we're just like, it feels like we're just marking time, waiting for the sci-fi story to kick back in, right? That did not happen with the second set of stories, even though the sci-fi adventure was a lot more fun than the fantasy adventure for the second story. I felt like the second fantasy story had a lot more going on. It was a lot more engaging. There was a better ability pool to choose from, so it did equal out in the end. And now we just did the third sci-fi section, and I really enjoyed that one as well. You have like one person, you both have balls, and one of them is like a magnetized ball, and the other one is like this conglomerate of drones that can hack things. So that was a cool little dynamic there, and there's a lot of different ways to do the level, or the level evolved. Like it started off as just like platforming with these little ball characters, then you did some more intricate things, and then finally it ended on like this boss fight that was like one person was the paddles and the other person was the ball, and it was like a arcade machine. It was like it escaped my mind for a second there. A pinball machine. So yeah, it's very much like a pinball machine for the ending boss, which was really cool, really cool. Well, not the ending boss, but like a mini boss. So I mean that, yeah. So I feel like even though there were times in the fantasy stories that I enjoyed, I feel like the sci-fi stories are a bit stronger. I think they have a bit more going on. But it's not to say that the fantasy side of things is lame or whatever. It's just sometimes it can be a bit less exciting than the sci-fi parts of the game. And maybe that's just a personal preference for me, because I am more of a fan of sci-fi than I am fantasy. But I mean, hey, look, I love Star Wars. Well, I don't know if I love Star Wars anymore. I like Star Wars, and I like and love Lord of the Rings. So, I'm two halves of a whole here. I'm kind of torn between two worlds, but I do tend to lean more towards the sci-fi elements than fantasy elements most of the time. Especially in video games, I feel like I'm more so playing the sci-fi games over the fantasy games. Like right now, Avowed is out, and I've kind of been like dragging my feet playing through it. But with another game that came out recently, which is more sci-fi related, I blitzed through that. I played through the whole thing. But then again, I played through Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which is obviously a bit of a realism, kind of more like medieval fantasy. But there's some fanatical elements to it. I played through the whole thing over some other games. So it's just one of those things where I guess it just depends on what day you ask me. But with split fiction in general, it's I feel like the sci-fi stories are a lot more exciting, and there's also a couple of side stories that have been pretty fun too. I talked about the one where you're pigs in the last one. Well, now that we've gone through the game more, there's like one where you race around in the sky, which is pretty cool. There was another one where you were escaping an exploding star, or you're trying to calm down an exploding star, going supernova, which was pretty cool. Some fun stuff there. A lot of cool stuff there. There was also another one that was pretty crazy. Like this, it was like a sweet tooth. You were transformed into a tooth, and you had to defeat a dentist. That was like really crazy. That really reminded me of It Takes Two at that moment. But yeah, I mean, I'm expecting to finish the game obviously before next week. I'll probably talk about some final thoughts before we close the book on it. But so far, I'm leaning towards a strong 4 out of 5. I don't know if I look, when It Takes Two came out, I thought that was great, but there were some things that I had issues with, different issues than with Split Fiction, but still I had issues with it. And even though I thought it was a top 10 game that year, I didn't think that it was like a game of the year contender. And I think the same thing for Split Fiction, where it's like, it's good. I'm enjoying my time with it. There are a couple of issues with it, mainly with some, the lopsided nature of the two characters' stories. There's also been some weird like issues with, I guess the controls aren't as clear as they should be sometimes, or at times the controls don't work as well. Like the double jump it just does kind of automatically, goes when you press the X button once. But that's like more minor things. But like still, I mean, even though I really enjoy the game, do I think it's going to be a game of the year contender? I mean, obviously, I think it's going to be in the game awards and it's going to be prominent there, of course. But I personally don't think that it's going to be a game of the year contender for me. We'll see what the ending is like, and maybe the ending will bring me back around. But right now, I'm kind of like I'm at like a 4 out of 5. I think it's the same level as It Takes Two right now. And unless the game really blows me away in the next like hour or two of gameplay that we have, it's probably going to stay at a solid 4 out of 5, which is still great. Which is still a great game, really good game. But I just have my issues with it, and I think that they've come a long way, right? Brothers: Tale of Two Sons is a really good game. I give that a thumbs up, obviously. A Way Out, I'm mixed on that game still. Greedy Waltz and I played that one together, and I just thought like, it's fine, but it's not like good in my opinion. Like it's just kind of like an average game. And then It Takes Two came out, and I was like, okay, yeah, there we go. Now we're getting to like what these games can be. And then Split Fiction comes out, and it's kind of like on the same level. So I do like that. It's not like I'm oh, I can't believe they made this a game on the same level as It Takes Two. No, I've been enjoying Split Fiction. I want it to be better than It Takes Two. I just don't think it will be at the end of the day, but we'll see. We'll see. I will keep playing it, and I will let you know next week when all is said and done. And finally, for what we've been playing this past week, we finished Donkey Kong 1994 on stream. This is one that I was very excited about, and Mario Day came around, or Mar 10 Day came around, and I was like, I've been really wanting to play this Donkey Kong game, and I felt like if I played it on my own, I probably could have beaten it in like one go, right? But I really wanted to stream it because it is a bit more niche, and I think more people deserve to see it because it's actually a very, very good game. It starts off, and you're like, well, I guess I kind of knew the twist of the game going into it because I've watched a couple videos on it. But the average person is gonna be like, oh, it's just Donkey Kong again. We're going up the ladders and we're jumping over barrels and we're going through the pie factory, blah blah blah. But the twist is that the game is much more than that. It's designed like a puzzle platformer. It's a prequel to the Mario versus Donkey Kong series. So, if you know how those games work, essentially you find a key and you have to work your way to the door, and you have a time limit and all that stuff. It's an arcade puzzle platformer. And Donkey Kong 94 is very much that. It's the building blocks for what that series would become. So you start off and it's platforming, grab the key, get to the exit. They add in enemies in there. They add in obstacles, levers, and switches, and moving platforms. Donkey Kong Jr. makes a couple of appearances, which is like really cool. Love that. Love to see Donkey Kong Jr. mixed in there. So he'll mess with you sometimes by throwing mushrooms that shrink you, or by changing the direction of a platform or something like that. On his own. Um, there's also like multiple boss fights through the game where you have to throw barrels back at Donkey Kong, or you have to get through a platforming section much like the original game and get to the top to try and save Pauline, but he'll obviously take her away until the end. So yeah, I mean it's a very entertaining game. It's very good. It definitely turns the Donkey Kong original formula on its head, and I think it does a really great job with that, making these levels very intricate sometimes and very cool. And there's a couple of items you can collect throughout your playthrough to improve your score and get more extra lives and stuff like that. So there's a lot of different levels of challenge to the game. Like you can have more of a challenge by also collecting all of the items in the game as well as the key and getting to the door in a timely manner. Like you can stack these things on top of each other and make for a more difficult experience. And I think in probably about 95% of the levels I got everything, all the different items and then the key. But there were a couple levels where I was like, wow, that would be kind of difficult to get this item. I don't want to do that right now. Maybe I'll come back to it. Yeah, I mean, I think that in terms of like Game Boy games, there's a lot of Game Boy games that suffer from like that screen crunch or from just kind of being very basic. And this game is not that at all. There's so much that you can do with just a D-pad and two buttons in this game. It's kind of crazy. And it all stems back to where it would go with Mario versus Donkey Kong and stuff like that. You have your handstand into a jump. You have a backflip. You have a whole slew of things to work with that you don't really expect from a Game Boy game, because Game Boys obviously were very rudimentary as to especially with nowadays with how many buttons are on controllers, and how many more buttons you can like add to controllers with macro inputs and stuff like that. So for how basic the control scheme is, it does do a lot with it, and I do appreciate that. Where this game starts to not lose me a bit, but just kind of make me go, man, I wish that was better. The physics in the game are very slippery. Whether you're on ice or not, it does not matter. Mario will slip slide everywhere, causing untimely deaths or whatever. And I guess that's a problem with most Mario games, where it just feels like you're doing an extra step or two, or a couple of extra steps, or you're just sliding around. Like you hold down on the D-pad or hold back on the D-pad to reverse yourself, and you just kind of like slide a few extra feet that you don't feel like you should. And this game kind of has that too, where you also have it's a bit floaty as well, where when you jump, it just feels like you're falling a bit slower than you should at times, or maybe not falling fast enough. And that was prevalent throughout the entire game, and I got used to it obviously, but it was still kind of annoying at times where you're trying to do a tight platforming section, and the character he's not going to the right place because he's not falling fast enough, or he's not going to the right area, or you fall down a little bit farther than you mean to because he slides off of the platform, or you have an untimely death because you slip off the platform or whatever. And I understand like there's obviously like a roll and die, like roll there. If you fall from too far of a height, you either like roll and stand back up, or you like fall flat on the ground and you're stunned for a second, or you just straight up die, which is obviously different from the original Donkey Kong game where you couldn't fall like 2 feet. At least in Donkey Kong 94, you can fall quite a ways before actually dying. But it was the physics. The physics is really what held me back from giving it a better score. I still give it a good score at the end of the day, don't get me wrong, but the physics really were the main thing that I was like really being held back with. The other thing too is not enough levels utilize the gimmicks. There's a lot of gimmicks in this game that are used maybe twice, and then it just kind of like doesn't use them until the last section of levels or whatever. There's this whole thing where you can like jump onto a wire and grab it and then twist your body and fly up. I felt like there was only like 3 levels in total that had that in it, and even though it didn't work as well as I was hoping it would in the game, it still was like something that I feel like they probably should have had more of. Same thing with platforms that sink into lava or something like that. Like there was like one level where it was the platforms sunk as you stood on them, and they sunk a little bit faster if you had the key. I really could. I really felt like they could have done more with that. And they do more with that in the future games, but we're talking about the original game, Donkey Kong 94, and that is a bit of a criticism for me. Is like a lot of the levels do tend to be very similar, where it's mostly just platforming challenges with a couple of other things thrown in here and there. But the main gimmicks of the game that they kind of teach you about during the little cutscenes in the game. They only stick around for like one level and then they're gone for a while and they come back randomly later on eventually, maybe. But compared to other Mario games, this one's definitely slip sliding. It's definitely got like more floaty controls than like maybe even more floaty than like the new Super Mario series. And I know there's like this big debate, like which game's slippier, which game's more floaty, Donkey Kong Country or the Mario games. And I stand by the fact that the Mario games have much worse physics in them, in my opinion. And maybe it's because I grew up with Donkey Kong Country and I got used to Donkey Kong Country. But goddamn, the amount of times whether I'm playing through Mario Bros. 1 or I played through which one did I play through last year? Mario World or this game, Donkey Kong Country. The amount of slipping and sliding, not Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Kong 94. The amount of slipping and sliding and floatiness to the character was always something that is detrimental to these 2D Mario games, and it's something that's been prevalent throughout most of the 2D Mario lineage. And the only time that I really enjoyed Mario games was during the 3D years where it didn't feel as floaty. And that's not to say that I hated Mario Wonder or something like that. Like, I still do enjoy the games. It's just I prefer the Donkey Kong Country style, and I also prefer the 3D Mario style of it just being a bit more, or a bit less slippy, a bit less floaty. So that's my thoughts. Take it or leave it. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I'm going to put it into the A tier, comfortably into the A tier. Enjoyable game. Very fun. Definitely check it out. It's on the NSO service, Game Boy NSO service. Definitely check it out. It's a unique and fun Game Boy game. And it started a whole series. And even though that series has kind of been dormant, even though they did a remake last year, it's been a bit dormant. It's still a fun series. It's got some fun puzzles in there. It's got some fun mechanics in there. And just a fun time in general. So check out Donkey Kong 94 on the Game Boy service. I'm giving it a thumbs up. All right, let's move on to what's in the news. All right, we're in the news section, ladies and gentlemen. The biggest news story out of this past week was an AI version of Aloy was spotted on the internet. Someone leaked an internal demo of this Aloy AI character onto Blue Sky and Twitter. Of course, the videos and footage have been deleted since with copyright strikes, but this, of course, alarmed a lot of people, and they were wondering what the heck they were going to use this AI Aloy for. Now, it was a prototype that featured Aloy as just like an example character. They obviously used voice lines from the person who performs Aloy, and they used that to train an AI to sound like the character. And it was I didn't really see too much of it. Obviously, the movements of the character and all that, it's obviously an early AI like prototype thing, so it's a bit janky, it's a bit weird. I can maybe see where the application will be for different projects. There are a couple games out there right now that people have been applauding because they are pretty unique. But there's like this detective game that's like a sci-fi game where you talk to various people about a crime scene, and you can actually talk to them through a microphone and ask them what's going on. Like, hey, what did you see? Where were you last night, or whatever. And obviously they have a limited supply of what they can talk about. So if you're like, hey, let's have sex later, they won't really respond to you. I think the same thing will happen with this Aloy character if they ever implement it into a game, God forbid. But that might be the same way that they do it, is that you can have a dynamic conversation with Aloy. I guess the main thing that they were showing off was like you could the idea was you could pause a game or stop in the game and talk to Aloy, the character you're playing as, and maybe ask her questions about the environment or questions about the puzzle that you're working on. So I guess there's like a little bit of application there where you could maybe see like, okay, what if, maybe it's like a blind assist thing where if you're a person who has limited vision or maybe even no vision, you could ask Aloy to describe the area for you, or to ask her where to go, and she might be able to give an answer for that. The prototype was running on PC, but they obviously would like to have it running on PS5. Um, this is the AI tech that Sony has been working on for maybe about a year now. Um, this article is saying that it doesn't seem to be ready for public consumption yet. Obviously, facial animations for Aloy are a bit uncanny. The AI voice is also a bit, weird and jarring. Like I said, I didn't get to see too much of it. I was at work at the time, and I was able to see like a quick clip on my phone. But it obviously got copyrighted. The post got copyrighted very quickly, and I didn't get to see too much of it because I was working, and I couldn't really do much with that. But there are still some like gifs that people made about it. I guess they could pull up on Twitter or stuff like that, or something like that. But like I said, in theory, I can see where the application for this could be. But I think using a character like Aloy, who's already established, who is already a part of a franchise at this point, is a bit odd. It would be I would have the same reaction if like they had Kratos being a character you can talk to. It just doesn't. I feel like if you have an original character, like let's make another Detroit Become Human, but make it more meta, right? Where like, because you remember how in Detroit Become Human, the main menu talked to you, right? The girl in the main menu talked to you, and you could actually have some sort of back and forth with her at times. So I could see maybe this being used for something a bit more meta, something a bit fourth wall breaking, where you have those microphones built into your controller. The DualSense controller has the built-in microphone. You could utilize that technology and be like, well, okay, well, I'm on the main menu, and she asks, what do you want to do? And you can say, hey, can you, I don't know, do a flip? And then no. But you could just ask questions or whatever. And I mean, obviously, like I said, there would have to be restrictions for this stuff, especially if they want to keep it T-rated or whatever, or R-rated, and not go into the adult category. But like I said, I can kind of maybe see some application for this. I'm not like totally against it. What I am against, though, is possibly using this, like AI voices and stuff like that, to replace the people who perform the roles in real life. And Ashley Birch, who does perform Aloy as a character, was on TikTok, and she had a couple of things to say about the whole ordeal. She said that she felt worried, and she wasn't worried specifically about Guerrilla Games or Horizon or her performance and career. She felt worried about the art form, the game performance art form. So she pointed out that voice actors are currently striking and seeking protections from AI, and that she wants to make sure that actors and actresses are compensated fairly for having AI doubles. So they can't just use an AI version of yourself without telling you, or they need to tell you what this AI is capable of. Something similar, I guess, happened with Zenless Zone Zero. 2 of the voice actors were recast with AI, and they weren't even told or informed until the latest patch that removed them, and their original performance was replaced about a week ago. So that is like the scary end of this. Like, yeah, there's one part where it's like a janky, like kind of uncanny performance by Aloy, who's an AI. The other side of things is people getting replaced by these AI voices and these AI movements without any human interaction behind it. That is very scary there. But I feel like if the actor or actress is told about the AI and they're told what it can do and they can interact with it themselves, and they get compensated for their voice being used, I think that's a good first step. Even though I don't want AI in the gaming landscape in terms of like performances or anything like that, I don't want that at all. I don't mind AI being used to help with the development of a game, like coding and stuff like that. Like, there's obviously a lot of useful applications for AI, but the one place that I think AI should leave entirely, one, art. You can always tell what's AI, especially if you're scrolling through the Switch eShop or the PSN store. You can definitely tell what's been AI generated in the thumbnails and what hasn't been. One, the artwork is, just take that out completely. And two, I think like using AI voices is not going to be the best application for the AI software. I think that's just it's just gonna take jobs away from people who need work, and it's gonna set a poor precedent if a big uh, company like Sony starts using this technology to just voice characters in games. We already had last year with the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, there was an AI voice that sounded terrible in that game that was a placeholder for the actual voice actor. I don't know why they released it before the voice actor recorded their lines. I don't get it. And it's a major, it's not like it's a small part of the game. You go through an entire section with this AI voice character, and it was just terrible. It sounded awful. And obviously, that was a year ago, and we've had a year of progress now, so I'm sure it would sound better now. But the fact that they already have this technology in some sort of uncanny form, working form, it is a bit worrying to at least me and to probably a lot of voice actors out there who they make their living from recording voice lines and doing motion capture performances. Now, like I said, this could just be an application that they are testing with Aloy. They obviously have a lot of dialogue for the AI to learn from Ashley Birch. So it's not like it's not like a character like, I don't know. I feel like Kratos doesn't have a lot of lines in the games, right? Or what he says is not like super long. Maybe they could do with Nathan Drake, but I felt like I guess I feel like if they're going to use a test subject, Aloy is probably the easiest test subject because she has a lot of dialogue throughout both of the games that she is in, and both those games recently were. I mean, the remaster of Horizon Zero Dawn was recently released, and then they also had Forbidden West come out like 2 years ago at this point, 3 years ago at this point. So they have a lot of voice lines to pull from and form this AI's personality. So yeah, it's just I'm not like super crazy about this idea. I know I've kind of justified it a little bit, but I'm not like crazy about this idea at all. Like who really needs to talk to the character in the game and break that fourth wall unless it's a part of the game. Like I said, if it's like a Detroit Become Human style game where the AI in the game is like becoming conscious and they can start to have conversations with you through your microphone, that would be cool. And I feel like that could work. But if you're going to use an original character like Aloy, Kratos, Nathan Drake, etc., any character, name them, and you're going to replace that actor who is already established in that role with an AI character with the same voice, that's where it becomes dicey. That's where I don't like that. But if you use an AI voice for a character that's specifically AI, I don't think I would mind that as much. But I would mind if they are replacing actors and actresses with AI. That would be pretty shitty. Obviously, a lot of these AI programs need to train with actual voices, so you could give them like a couple episodes of Fair 64 and they would be able to talk like me or whatever. But, would you replace me on this podcast with an AI voice? I don't think that would work. Same thing with, would I replace Aloy with an AI voice in her game? Yeah, I don't think that would work at all. Because I mean, maybe it'll get to it at one point where it is seamless, but I think everyone knows when an AI voice is present. And I don't think I need to describe it to you what it sounds like, but too crisp. Maybe they don't it doesn't feel right when you're talking to them. It doesn't sound right, or there's just something weird going on with that. It's just like with AI art. You can kind of tell what's AI made because there's a very distinct style. It's a very similar style, and you can kind of steer clear of those games or those pictures that look AI created, right? Same thing can be said for voices. There's a template for a voice, and they all kind of start out in the same way, and they build off of that. And you can kind of, at least at this point, you can still tell what's an AI voice and what's not, for the most part. But the last thing I will say is, I will reiterate that I can see an application for this, but I don't think that we should be using established characters and or replacing the voice and performance actors and actresses with AI. I think that this could be a very small niche where AI could be used to make a game better by having it be a meta fourth wall breaking experience. But if we are in the world of Horizon or God of War or whatever, I don't think it has a place there at all. So, thank you. Speaking of AI, Microsoft has been training their Copilot for gaming AI. This is a neat little application that can tell you where you are in a game, what to do next in a game. You can tell it to install games on your PC or phone. You can ask it to pull up a strategy guide and tell you, like, how do I beat this level, or how do I do this? You actually talk back and forth with it, like, okay, I have some wood in my inventory in Minecraft. How do I create a table? What do I do with this stuff? And it will actually bring up an answer saying, you can craft oak logs to make wooden planks by opening your inventory and placing the logs in the crafting area, stuff like that. And this is actually being pushed by Phil Spencer. He said in a Blue Sky post, excited for Xbox insiders to try out Copilot gaming on mobile very soon. The experience puts players at the center, helping you pick up where you left off, learn new strategies, and connect more easily with friends. You can learn more on the Xbox podcast that was recently available. But I think it's a cool idea to be like, well, I want to get back into this game, but I don't remember where I left off. And the AI can be like, okay, so you left off in this level on Age of Empires, and you were doing this. Or it can be like, okay, this is, so, to kind of ease you back into the game, this is how you play, or this is how you move around on the screen, or what. I guess it can help a bit. And I think that stuff like this, AI helping and tools, is just an evolution of what PlayStation did with the PlayStation Plus Essentials tier, where there's hints in game, hints for collecting trophies, and hints and stuff like that you can choose to have pop up on your screen, or you can choose to look at by just pressing the PlayStation button. So this is kind of like an evolution of that, where it's more of like an in-depth, like it can actually hear what you're saying and show you what you need to do and stuff like that. So yeah, I can, once again, I can see the application for this. And I think that there is something to be said about this tool, this AI tool. Is it entirely needed? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know how many people are going to actually use this. Is this going to spell the end of walkthrough videos and tutorial videos on YouTube? No. But it's a handy little tool, I guess, a handy little feature that maybe would be able to help you with some basic things. And I guess at this point, we haven't seen enough of it. We also, we don't know, like, how it's going to manage, like, data and what you said to it and stuff like that. Like, if you tell it to die, go kill yourself or whatever, is it going to, like, keep that stored in its memory and then, like, report to Microsoft that you told it to do that? And then you get in trouble for talking to your AI like that? I don't know. It is a weird thing, though. We are going more towards the Detroit Become Human side of things every step of the way. But right now, Copilot for Gaming is going to come to people who are in the Insider program for Microsoft sooner rather than later at this point, and we'll see what people say about that. Okay, People Can Fly. They worked on Bulletstorm and Outriders. Bulletstorm being a bombastic first-person shooter with lots of crass jokes, and Outriders being a one of those like Destiny kind of games where it's like a shoot 'em up, loot 'em up kind of thing with special abilities. They have been hired by Sony, by PlayStation, to work on a Sony IP. No other details have been confirmed except for its name being Project Delta. Surprisingly, Delta is the name of Marcus Phoenix's group in Gears of War. I'm sure there's no correlation there, obviously. They are currently helping with E-Day, which I guess there is a bit of a correlation there. Project Delta is in Gears of War. Gears of War E-Day is the game that they are also helping Microsoft develop. So I'm guessing that work on Gears of War E-Day is almost over or at least their part in the development, meaning that they've opened up more time to work on something else. So Sony has hired them to create a new game based on a pre-existing IP. So that could be Resistance, that could be Killzone, that could be. I mean, they still own the rights to Mag, which I talked about a couple weeks ago because I repicked up the game on PlayStation 3. I feel like they would be perfect to make a more bombastic type game, and one of those main games that's very bombastic is Killzone. It's always been more bombastic, except for Shadowfall. That was obviously a bit more grounded, but the original like 3 Killzone games go to some pretty crazy places. They're pretty crazy. Um, so I could see them working on like a Killzone in a Bulletstorm style kind of game. Resistance, I maybe don't think so. Resistance doesn't seem to be their cup of tea, but I mean they could make Resistance into like a third person Outriders type experience, I suppose. The one thing that people are concerned about is if they're making another live service game, and if that game is if it is going to be a live service game, is it going to be a Killzone thing, a Resistance thing, something else? Um, Maybe it's going to be like Killzone Helldivers, like Helldivers but Killzone. Yeah, I mean, I guess that could work, I suppose, but I guess we'll wait to hear more about this. But as of right now, Project Delta is in the works, and we will see what they decide to announce in the future. All right, in a bit of a surprise move, Niantic, who is the developer and owner of, or I'm sorry, the developer of Pokemon Go, Pikmin Bloom, Monster Hunter Now, has sold their company for $3.5 billion to a company called Scopely, who is a world leader in mobile games. The application is just a few weeks after Niantic wanted to start selling off their company. Working on a couple things in the background. I guess they just needed more funding, maybe, or maybe they didn't have enough funding. I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't really know. On the website, Niantic says that they have made an agreement with the California-based mobile game developer to sell its gaming division for the above amount, with an additional $350 million of cash from Niantic being distributed as part of the deal. Scopely is the developer behind games such as Star Trek Fleet Command, Marvel Strike Force, and Monopoly Go. I guess Monopoly Go is one of the biggest mobile games in the USA and around the world, which is kind of crazy. The developer is owned by Savvy Games Group, who is a Saudi video game investment company from Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, which owns 7.5% stake in Nintendo. Niantic praises Scopely's focus on building and operating credible live service games. So, I don't know how monetized Pokemon Go is, but I would not be surprised if they start adding in more microtransactions to these games. Because the games that they listed off from Scopely, Marvel Strike Force, Monopoly Go, Star Trek Fleet Command, I know that Monopoly Go is very, very monetized. That game is microtransaction central. I'm not sure about Fleet Command or Strike Force, but I can only assume that those games also have a fair amount of stuff there. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say what's going to happen with Pokemon Go in the future or any of the other games that they've worked on, like Pikmin Bloom and stuff like that. Hard to say exactly what's going to happen. $3.5 billion, though. That is a fair chunk of change. Niantic is definitely being paid out for this developer. That's the thing, though. Like, don't give this developer a big IP. What are they gonna make? You know, I don't know if Nintendo will keep going to them for stuff. They like their work, obviously. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say other than that's a lot of money, and I guess that they're just this Scopely company is just investing in the mobile market even more, which I guess makes sense. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. Speaking of live service games, a live service game that came out 2 weeks ago has gone the route of Concord and decided to close down its servers only 2 weeks after its launch. Specter Divide is the game in question. And you would not be wrong to be saying, what is that? Because I also did not know anything about this game when I saw this article. I'm like, Specter Divide, what the fuck is Specter Divide? So apparently it's a Valorant-inspired 3v3 game that released on February 25th. And within the next 30 days, the title will be taken offline permanently. The developer, Mountaintop Studios, will close at the end of this week. So they're probably already closed right now. In a statement on Twitter, they said, it's a bit of a long one, so stick with me here. Dear Specter fans, it's been 2 weeks since we launched Specter Divide Season 1 Flashpoint. We're incredibly grateful for the positivity and support that you've shown. Unfortunately, the Season 1 launch hasn't achieved the level of success we need to sustain the game and keep Mountaintop afloat. We are optimistic about the first week. We've had 400,000 players play with the peak concurrent player count of 10,000 across all platforms. But as time has gone on, we haven't really seen enough active players and incoming revenue to cover the day-to-day costs. Since the PC launch, we stretched our remaining capital as far as we could, but at this point, we're out of funding to support the game. That means Mountaintop will be closing its doors at the end of the week. We expect to take Specter offline within the next 30 days, but we plan on disabling new purchases and refunding money spent since Season 1 launch via the platforms. We'll be following up on more information soon. We pursued every avenue to keep going, including funding, finding a publisher, additional investment, and or acquisition. In the end, we weren't able to make it work. This is painful update to share. We love Specter, and we are incredibly proud of what we built and the community that we formed. So yeah, it just seems like it's another dead in the water kind of game that came out into a saturated market, as I say, and here we are. Yeah, I don't know what else to say other than like I don't know what this game is, and right now it's peaking at less than. I mean, it looks like 50 players. So that's on PC. The game has been out since 2024 on PC, but the console and the console launch just did not go the way they wanted it to, and now with the PC numbers falling completely, yeah, it's just one of those things. Like I said, I had no clue that this game even existed. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't want to have played it anyway. It's funny because they also released this game very close to Concord as well, because Concord also came out during that time too, right? And they shut down pretty quickly. So yeah, it's unfortunate that they wasted so much of their time with this game, Specter Divide. They wasted their time with this pretty much. I mean, even though they're proud of what they made, obviously you can't get that time back that could have been used to work on something that maybe people would have wanted to play, something that wasn't in a wasn't in a saturated market, or even if it was, like they could have made it maybe a bit more unique, keep people around. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird, and that is that. Now the bigger news here is that Star Wars Hunters, the free-to-play game that came out last year for Switch and mobile, is shutting down its servers on October 1st, 2025. On the website, they said April 15th will be the final content update for Star Wars Hunters. You can still play the game, and the newest hunter, Tuya, will be made available free for all users from April 15th onward. The game will remain playable until October 1st, 2025. You can visit the blog or FAQ post for more details. Thank you for your support and joining us on Vespera. So they are this is crazy. They are not going to be refunding people's purchases. So if you were the dumbass, I'm going to say it. If you were the dumbass who bought things in this game thinking that it was going to be around forever, you lost your money. The microtransactions in this game were so egregious. Like just buying a character outright was like $25, right? And you could just earn the character by playing the game. But obviously, if you wanted to unlock a specific character earlier on, then yeah, sure, you would spend the money for that. You have wasted your money. You have wasted your own time, and you wasted everything. You wasted it. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than like this was a bit of a failure of a game. It was fun in short bursts, but in my opinion, it just had no staying power. And I talked about it last year. I have a podcast episode dedicated to it for a section. I didn't think that it was good enough to be viable to keep going for the long term. And I think I even predicted like, yeah, it's probably not going to be around for more than a year or two. And here we are. The game is shutting down at the by the end of this year. So I can't say that I'm surprised. But like I said, it was fun in short bursts. There was some enjoyment to be had about it. I just found the game to be incredibly easy when you're playing on console because you're playing against a bunch of little kids playing on their phones, and there's obviously more reliability in your aiming and in using your abilities when you're using a controller because you can press multiple buttons at the same time, whereas on the phone, like, you can press like maybe two buttons at the same time, and then your fingers are kind of held back. So it was much too easy, one, and then two, it was much too boring and it was much too basic, especially if you're playing in the long term. So Star Wars Hunters officially shutting down. They will not be making any more content after this April 15th. So that is that. All right, BlizzCon is making its return in 2026. That is next year. They have not done a BlizzCon for 2 years now, pretty much since the Xbox acquisition. They haven't really done one. I mean, you can expect to see what you normally see in these BlizzCon events. Maybe an Overwatch update, new character, a Diablo update, maybe a new DLC coming out, a World of Warcraft updates, something like that. I'm sure that they'll have maybe a couple things to announce too, so I suppose keep an eye open for that. But BlizzCon is going to take place the week of the 12th of September, and there will be a main stage with in-depth panels, the Dark Moon Fairy, friendly competition, hands-on gameplay, and more. I'm not like super big into Blizzard Entertainment. I never really have been. The only game from them that I really spent a lot of time in was Overwatch. Other than that, not really a fan of like World of Warcraft and stuff like that. And I know, that's blasphemy, but I just never really been a StarCraft guy. Never really been a World of Warcraft guy. Didn't play the card game that they put out either. But I guess it's nice to see it coming back, especially because Blizzard does have a lot of passionate fans. We'll see how different it is now that Xbox owns them, and we'll see if Xbox has any guiding hand in this at all. But as of right now, just know that it is coming back after a 2-year hiatus, and we'll wait to see what they have to announce when that comes around. Finally, for the news today, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 put out a massive patch, 55 gigabytes on PS5. I believe it's very comparable on PC as well. The patch notes are a book to read through, so I'm not going to read through everything. But the one thing that I will say, and let me pull it up real quick. I got logged out. The one thing I will say is that I'm going to strongly stand by my 5 out of 5 because they fixed the lighting issues with the game. I have not gone back in and played it, but in the patch notes, they said that they fixed lighting textures in certain parts of the game. Now, I don't know if they fixed the lighting when it's raining out, but they did make a note that the lighting in the game has been improved, and it shouldn't flicker anymore when you're in a conversation with someone. So that's cool. They did a bunch of different patches here, though. One of the biggest ones is introducing a new barber. You can have a barber change your facial hair and your hair in both Gutenberg and Zeldrov, which are two of the main locations in the game. They also fixed some of the conditions for unlocking achievements. They improved the lighting effects while doing alchemy. They improved how animals are, like how a ragdoll works for them and stuff like that. They improved some balancing for how quickly food goes bad. That was something that I was kind of annoyed with a little bit. You would go to sleep and your bread would be bad overnight. They rebalanced the difficulty of pickpocketing some NPCs. They made some improvements to blacksmithing, the blacksmithing minigame. They increased damage from hits from a multi-hit combo. They added proper facial animations to Henry during mercy kill executions. They improved the animation of NPCs shooting crossbows. They fixed disarming of NPCs and fixed dying NPCs still looking at their opponents. I mean, just like so much here. They fixed some stuff with cutscenes, some stuff with daily life, with the AI and NPCs in the game, the horse riding, the fast traveling, the characters, and the music, mutts, the shops. Everything has been balanced. Everything has been fixed up in the game. So this is a massive patch. It is like I said, 55 gigabytes. So they definitely put a lot of work into this. They've probably been working on this since before the game launched, honestly. But the game is great for what it is, and I think this patch is just going to make it even better. So if you were maybe having some trouble with the game in terms of like maybe you're having some trouble with like the realism because the character when they died they would keep looking at you as you moved around. They've fixed that. They fixed a bunch of little things in here. So if you want to start downloading that, make sure you have your console in sleep mode overnight because it is going to be a big one. All right, let's go ahead and move on to what's coming soon. All right, Death Stranding 2 had a massive 10-minute reveal trailer. It was pretty crazy. Pretty crazy indeed. There was also a separate trailer specifically for the collector's edition of the game as well. So the release date for the game is going to be June 26th. I've watched the trailer a couple times now, and it is just as bizarre and weird as the original game is. Now, I would very much like to try and play and finish the original game before this comes out, but I don't think that's just not going. I don't think that's going to happen. This game seems to be a bit different from the first game. Like obviously, you're still like delivering things and whatever, but there's a much more. I don't know if it's like crazy story going on, but there is a much more, a much different kind of thing going on because you've linked all the different parts of the USA together. Like there's different weird occurrences happening throughout the land, which is kind of crazy. They obviously have a lot of new characters mixed in here. Doll Man and Higgs or whatever his name was, Riggs. All these new characters are around. Obviously Norman Reedus is back to play the titular character. And I mean, if all of this is in-game footage, which a lot of it is, it looks very impressive. It looks very good. I'm sure it's gonna have that Hideo Kojima flair that you know and love. Lots of long cutscenes, I'm sure. So yeah, pretty crazy. So yeah, this comes out June 26th. It's looking really good. The collector's edition, which like I said had its own trailer because I guess they just thought that there was so much in it. You get 2-day early access to the game, so you can play the game on June 24th. The collector's edition includes a 15-inch Megalon Man statue, which is kind of like one of the kaiju in the game. There's a 3-inch Doll Man keychain. The collector's box, of course, art cards. You get a letter from Hideo Kojima himself. You get all the pre-order bonus content, including the Battle Boost Boca Skeleton Silver Level 1, 2, and 3 pants, and also a custom hologram Quokka early unlock. You also get a couple of in-game items specifically with this deluxe edition, including a Patch 70 Quokka, which might give you something, Patch 71 Churro Feline, Patch 72 Why Me, a machine gun Level 1 early unlock, and a couple more of those pants or outfits, the Boca Skeleton, the Boost Skeleton, and the Battle Skeleton. I believe that there's also a digital deluxe edition, so the in-game stuff probably comes with the digital deluxe edition, which is, I guess, would be pretty good. I think this is a nice collector's edition. It might be a bit overpriced, especially because, like, the 2-day, like, the early access stuff is really BS in my opinion. Like they sell they're selling like Assassin's Creed Shadows for like $120 just to play it early or whatever. Like of course it's a digital deluxe edition, but still, I think the whole early access thing is just a really a stain on the fucking gaming landscape right now. And it all started with Battlefield. It all started with EA and Battlefield. Battlefield like 4 or something like that had a week early access if you paid an extra like $20. And that sold so well that it set a precedent inside of the gaming community, which definitely would start to materialize nowadays with all these editions. Just, you're paying like an extra $50 to play the game 2 days early or a day early, which is very, very dumb in my opinion. I hate that so much. But I think that in general the collector's edition isn't bad. But we'll see. I don't know if there's a price for it yet. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's a price for it yet. Here we are. $230. Oh, yeah, that's not good. $230. I take it back. Not a good collector's edition for $230. That's crazy. Space Marine 3 has officially been announced. They are starting work on the game right now as we speak. Saber Interactive is partnering with Games Workshop to make another sequel to the game, a threequel, if you will. They will stay true to the Warhammer 40k universe with intense, brutal, and spectacular gameplay. This game will be even more immersive than before. Players can look forward to an immersive campaign, a multiplayer mode, and innovations that will redefine the standards of third-person action games. Matthew Karch, the CEO of Saber Interactive, said, Space Marine 2 has proven to be a transformative game for Saber. It is this culmination of everything we have learned about game development in our 25 years in the business. We are now starting to develop Space Marine 3, a game that carries with a tremendous expectation from our rapidly expanding fan base. Even though I didn't love Space Marine 2, I did think it was a pretty good game, all things considered. I thought it was good. And we'll see what they do with Space Marine 3. It's cool to see that a game that was so dormant over the past 10 years, from Space Marine 1 to Space Marine 2, was a long wait. And then Space Marine 2 comes out and it's a hit, and now Space Marine 3 already in development. So we'll probably see more about this game in probably a couple years at this point, maybe 2 years, because if they're just starting development, I'm sure it's going to take them a while to get some reveal stuff out there. But we'll see in the near future, I suppose. Okay, there was a big showcase for Silent Hill F. Silent Hill lowercase f, that is. So Silent Hill F had a pretty nice trailer here, about 3.5 minutes long, and it just kind of showed off the game. And the game looks absolutely incredible. It's based in Japan. You're playing as this Japanese girl who is stuck in this city alone, and there's something weird going on. So it's very much the Silent Hill formula at this point, with weird monsters, and there's obviously going to be some sort of psychosis or something in the game as well. But so far, the environments and the animations and the sound effects and stuff like that, it's all on point for this. And it's going to be very cool to see more about this. You can actually pre-order it right now if you want to. The game is set to launch sometime in 2025, I believe. You can wishlist it now on Steam and on various other platforms. Yeah, I mean, it's looking very good. And after last year's Silent Hill Homecoming, it'll be interesting to see how they took some of the criticism about that game and put it into this one. You can go back and listen to my review of Homecoming from last year. I don't want to bring up any old talking points, but I was impressed by the graphics, and I was impressed by the soundtrack and the sound design, but everything else kind of failed. And hopefully they make this game more than just that. It already seems to be. It already seems to be more than just that. So if you want to check out that video for the trailer, it's on PlayStation's YouTube channel and also the Silent Hill official channel. It seems like it's going to be a very interesting game. So if you want to check that out, there you go. Also, Power Wash Simulator is getting a sequel, Power Wash Simulator 2. I didn't think that they were going to do this, since they have been putting out a lot of content for Power Wash Simulator. But yeah, maybe this is just to bring the game to the next generation with some souped-up graphics, some better physics. They also said that they were improving how soap works in the game. Soap will actually be more powerful against certain types of grime and muck in the game. There's also going to be a hub area that you can explore around. Muckingham will have a home base inside of it, where you can customize furniture and other items that you collect throughout the campaign. Also, there will be some new locations to visit, like Sponge Valley, Power Falls, and Lubri City. Power Wash Simulator 2 will feature online co-op, just like before, and it also will introduce split screen, meaning local co-op. Yeah, kind of cool. I mean, I enjoyed Power Wash Simulator. I thought it was a bit boring at times, but obviously, I think the entire playthrough as a whole was at least fun, especially if you're playing with someone else. Hopefully, they have crossplay for this one, and that would be cool. From the screenshots and a little bit of gameplay that we got, the environments look better. Not like the best though, but the environments do look better, and we'll see what all happens when you get more details about this. It is set to come out in 2025, so it's gonna be coming to Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, Epic Store. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what that's all about. There was a PSVR 2 event, I guess you could say, that had some games in it. They reduced the price of the headset. So if you've been waiting for a headset to buy a headset, they have reduced it by like $100, and that includes the Call of the Mountain bundle. Some of the games that they talked about inside of this little event: Out of Sight VR, a unique virtual reality experience which takes place from a second-person perspective. You play as Sophie, a blind girl who's only able to see through the eyes of her teddy bear. Can you help her navigate the dark? That's a very interesting concept. Postal 2 VR is an adaptation of the legendary PC first-person shooter from 2003. The title has been rebuilt for virtual reality, meaning manual reloading and physical melee combat. Physical peen as well, maybe, perhaps? RoboQuest VR. This is a roguelike game where you play as robots who can improve themselves. A fast-paced first-person shooter with roguelike progression. This game sees you wielding over 100 weapons and adrenaline-pumping action shootouts, both in single-player and two-player co-op. Shadowgate VR, The Mines of Mythrock, a virtual reality adaptation of the enormously powerful Shadowgate series. Armed with the Sorcerer's Wand and an enhanced shield, you must master your magic and make it through Mythrock. Another game, Surviving Mars Pioneer, a first-person adaptation of the strategy survival series. This game casts you as a lone settler on the Red Planet, and it requires you to manage oxygen, nutrition, and health while braving your new home environment. Kind of sounds like that movie that came out with Mark Wahlberg or whatever. Wrath, Aeon of Ruin VR, the final game here. Inspired by Doom, this game is built on the legendary Quake engine and promises a frenetic, fast-person shooter inspired by the 90s. So, yeah, I mean, some cool stuff there for sure. If you're an owner of the PSVR, we have been thirsty for, something to come out for this headset. The latest, I have my headset up here. I wanted to play more of it, but I just haven't had the will to do it. And it's not because it's so difficult to set. It's not really that difficult to set up at all. But the main thing is I just haven't been in the mood to play VR, and you kind of have to be in that mood. And last year I had a week-long stint where I played a bunch of VR games and finished a couple of them, and then I kind of went back to being well, that was fun. Let's just go back to playing regular games. And even though I still would love to play more games on the VR, you got to be in the right headset or headspace. So I haven't even tried the Metro game on there yet, even though I own it, which is one of the games that I was really excited about coming to the system. We need more big games like that, though. A lot of these games that they announced are just remakes of games that already are available to you to play, just so you get a first-person perspective, which is just kind of the baseline, kind of lazy, I guess. I mean, I know that they have to redesign the games entirely, sure, but it's still a bit lazy because it's just well, I already own Postal 2 on Steam. I already have played the robot game on Xbox Game Pass. What's going to be so different about the first-person perspective other than maybe it's a bit harder or more difficult? I think the one game that is the most interesting here is Out of Sight VR, which is the one with the teddy bear, and you guide the little girl who's blind with the teddy bear. So I think that could be a pretty cool concept. Everything else, though, ranges from okay to all right. All right, here are the 6 games confirmed for Xbox Game Pass in April. We're getting there. We're already halfway through March. The Ides of March is already upon us. So we got South of Midnight coming April 8th. We have Commandos Origins coming April 9th. Also on April 9th, we have Descenders Next. April 10th is Blueprints. April 17th is Tempopo. April 24th is Claire Obscure Expedition 33. And that's it so far. That's all that's been confirmed so far. I'm pretty interested in most of these games. I think the only one I'm not really interested in is Commandos Origins. Everything else is looking pretty cool. That South of Midnight game is the one with the bayou, and it's inspired by Louisiana and voodoo, so that's looking pretty cool. That's going to be on Xbox Game Pass on the 8th. Commandos Origins is a World War II game where you just command around your commandos and do missions, I guess. It just doesn't seem like my cup of tea, though. Descenders Next. Descenders was a snowboarding game that came out a while ago, and I guess it's getting another one in the series, so that's kind of cool. It'll also include those wheelie boards or whatever, the boards with the wheels on them. I guess that could be kind of interesting. Blueprints is a mystery game, a puzzle mystery game where you're in like this house of mystery and wonder. Kind of cool, kind of cool. I'm sure Cal will be playing that one simply because it has blue in the title. Tempopo is a like it's almost like inspired by Captain Toad in its like way that it's presented itself. But you play as like this little girl who controls things with music, I suppose. So it kind of seems it seems like a very interesting game. I'm actually interested in this one. I know that like the name of the game sounds, kind of goofy. Tempopo. You're using music to move around these little lemmings type characters. I think it might actually be a pretty fun time. So don't count that one out. And then the Expedition 33 is the game about Petty, and the number gets written out there, and all the people who are like 33 die or whatever, disappear. In this game, you try to get to that place and take it out. It's a third person action game with special abilities that you have. So if you want to check that out, one of the weirdest names of the year, Claire Obscure Expedition 33, but obviously it's a pretty highly anticipated one, of course. And here are your 12 PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tier games. We'll start with the extra tier, of course, with UFC 5, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, Captain Tsubasa: Rise of the New Champions, Mobile Suit Gundam Battle Operation Code Fairy, Arcade Paradise, Bang on Balls Chronicles, You Suck at Parking, and Siberia: The World Before. And then the premium games are Arcade Paradise VR for the PSVR 2, Armored Core 1, Armored Core Project Phantasma, and Armored Core Master of Arena. Those will all be available in March, which they should be available soon, in 2 days, on March 18th. So if you're listening to this on Monday, the day that it comes out, the day after will be the day that these games are available to download and play, if you so desire. Out of this list, Prince of Persia, definitely the one that I would recommend here. I haven't really heard of any of these other ones, other than You Suck at Parking, which is kind of a funny little multiplayer party game, if you want to check that out. And I know that the Siberia series is kind of a bit of a AA, like underground kind of game. A lot of people enjoy the Siberia games, but it's not as popular as other things. But yeah, I think there's like maybe 3 games on this list that are very cool for the extra, or would be worth playing for the extra month. The premium games, these original Armored Core games, I don't know how well they have aged, but I think it's very cool that they're adding both the original 3 games onto the service. So that is a cool part of this as well. Okay, let's go ahead and finish this podcast off with Guess That Song. If you know the song's name and the game that came from, let me know either in the comments below on YouTube, in the comments on Spotify, which I can respond and like comments on Spotify now, so I will also be able to do stuff there. Or if you want to join the Discord, link down in the description below, and join the Fair64 chat and say the song name and the game that came from there, I will give you a super reaction, and you'll get the admiration of your peers. Let's go ahead and listen to today's song right now. All right, if you know the name of the song and the game that came from, let me know in the places that I told you to. All right, folks, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. I really do appreciate that. If you want to check me out, it's all at Yemmy the Ferret, whether it be on Twitch, Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, etc. The other podcast I do is Film Freaks with a Z, where we talk about movies. The latest episode is about The Man Who Knew Too Little. The next episode will be about Mulan from 1999. Also, if you want to check me out on Twitch, I stream on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Right now, we are playing through Styx, Shards of Darkness, and we are finishing up my 2010 playthrough of Call of Duty 2 Veteran Mode, which could get maybe a bit entertaining with my reactions to some of the moments in that game. We've already gotten through a good chunk of the levels that I was still remaining, but we still have a good chunk to go still. So if you want to check that out, we'll be streaming that as well. Rest in peace to my original Xbox 360. It's not dead, but it's been having a lot of troubles lately. It won't play games unless it's just laying down. Sometimes the disk drive won't open. And the day that I booted up to play through Call of Duty 2, just in general, it gave me a red ring. I just had to reboot it and it came back online, but I was very concerning. So I'm going to be retiring my Xbox 360, my original Xbox 360 Elite. I got it all the way back in 2010. and I am retiring it for good. I'll probably keep it on my shelf still. The spot is open there for it, next to my broken fat PS3. It was a sad moment in the morning, waking up, and I was really excited. Like, oh, I'm gonna play more Xbox 360. I guess I've just been playing a little bit too much of it, and it was having some struggles, and it's still having more struggles. And I think it's just time to let it rest. I already ordered a Xbox 360, like the newest version of it from eBay. It was like less than $100, which I thought was a pretty good deal, and it included like 4 games that I didn't have. So that's also a good deal as well. So we'll continue the game on the new Xbox. I should be able to transfer all my data over, so we should be able to pick up where I left off. All right, folks. Have a good rest of your day. I am Yemmy the Ferret, and I am out of here. So long.
The Ferret 64 podcast is owned and edited by Yemmy the Ferret. Small sound clips used throughout the podcast were made by Yemmy the Ferret. The song in the intro and outro is Nightshade by Adhesive Wombat. The Ferret 64 logo was made by Player2P2. News sources include PushSquare.com, NintendoLife.com, and PureXbox.com. All opinions, video game related, are my own. Thank you for listening.